גבירותיי ורבותיי, חברי הנשיאות, I should be accustomed by now to hear these eulogies. I'm still not yet hard enough not to hear them without embarrassment. Let me just say that what is my maxim about journalists and introductions, you should take them as lies unless differently proven. So, as one of the true things that has been said is that I'm a lousy speaker, and that I'm just telling it to you in order that not only you know it, but I also know about it. Still, let me try the best that I can of just saying something. Let me begin with what I call kvod achsania, about the people that I'm addressing, the Jewish communal workers. In a strange way, community worker reminds me of something that has been discussed in the last Shabbat, the portion of the week, that has been devoted to the Levites, the tribe of Levi. Who are these people? See, they are, on one hand, they are deprived of being landlords. They are deprived of being really settled people of the land. They don't get any inheritance of the land. They are just move about and around, and they don't get any kind of a fixed, nice occupation. That is one side. On the other side, there are priests. The priests work hard, but they get lots of glory. They get the renown. They are obvious to everybody. Now, what are the Levites doing? They are just working. The description is that they are the servants to drag, to fetch, to sing, but they don't get any of the glory, and they get only lots of work to do. It's always a question which sometimes looking at Jewish community leaders, I'm asking again and again, what makes them tick? I mean, I don't think that they are highly paid. They are surely not in the headlines. I mean, in such gatherings, they may honor each other, but not in so many other occasions. They are, what is the duty? I would say that they are to the communities, and again, I'll put it in as simple as I may say, they are the perpetual nudniks. They are the gadflies of the community, which means they have to goad other people into giving, into contributing, into helping, into reaching out, reaching in, doing something. And as gadflies, nobody likes them. I mean, nobody really likes them. They are, they serve possibly a very important function, but as I say, there is no glory in it. So, what makes them run? And in a way, Moses says in the last portion something which is, you may take it in one way or another. Is it not, when he speaks to the Levites, is it not enough for you that you became the servants of the people and the servants of the Lord? To be a community leader is in fact to enlist into this job of being a servant of the people, a servant that does avodat v'avodat masa, working and bragging. This is what they are doing it. And what are they basically? They are servants. They are servants. And the only glory that they can derive is not from some testimonial that they will get after 40 years of service. Possibly they will get some. But usually, if they can do something, is just the feeling that they are servants. It is, in one way, it is a very lowly word to be a servant. But see, the highest people in our nation are not called just prophets, kings, but there is a title that seems to be much above them, and that is the slave of God, Eved Hashem. And that seems to be one of those rare things attributed to Moses, attributed to David, a few individuals throughout the history, which means there is some kind, not of an obvious, but an internal glory in being just a servant, and doing as it has to be done. Usually, the servant is allocated all the dirty jobs that nobody else wants to do, obviously. Who is going to collect the money? Who is going to deal with the elderly, with the crazy, with those that don't want and are not interested? That is the community worker in one way, in one capacity or another. That is what he has to do. That is his job. And as I said, he has to feel that he is doing this type of work, that there is the internal glory of it. Now, I'm saying these things not in order to pat you what they call communal heads, but because in certain ways you are the people that are constantly demanding from others. And the real work is that some people would demand, ask to do all kinds of things, but you have to want to do things that are much more than that you are allowed to or supposed to, and in a way you can, and in a way you should be, the power behind the scenes. And it's a pity if you are just dragged after others. You have, I don't know if you have to be obvious leaders. You won't be allowed to anyway. There are enough lay leaders that will take the limelights anytime. But you have to do the work. You have to do the work. You have to coach others and you have to guide others. And in that, you have to be driven from within. Now, the work of the communal leader, communal worker really, is, of course, there are diverse types of work. From, I would say, from fundraising to education, from handling centers to helping new immigrants, and so on and so forth. But as it has been said, it seems now that the basic need of our people, and therefore your duty, is not just to enhance the Jewish identity, but in many cases to ensure this inheritance, to ensure it for further times and for further ages. Not for the next 10 or 20 years, but in many ways for the next 100 years. And it is not an easy job. It never was. It perhaps becomes now a harder and not an easier job, because of the changing times, because of the changing moods, because we as a people are changing constantly, and we still have to go on to continue somehow. Now, when one deals with Jewish identity, which is in a way the main thing, the first thing to do is just to be identified as such, what the Bible calls Beshem Yisrael Yechaneh. And let me translate it, possibly not exactly, a person that is still called a Jew, and I'm stressing it, called a Jew, is possibly not so very much of a Jew in any sense, but he's still called a Jew. Now, in a way, it is also difficult to be a person called a Jew. It is not so very easy. Of course, there is one way that existed for many years, and that was identity by rejection, which means I gain my Jewish identity because I am rejected by others, because I am hated, because I am at least mocked, because I am somehow given to feel that I am a stranger, that I don't belong, and therefore I gain some kind of identity. Now all this identity, I would say, this negative type of identity, which, to call it again in a coarse way, the identity of self through the kick in the backside is not enough. It is not enough for life. Sometimes it's a wonderful beginning. I just heard it yesterday from somebody that spoke about Russian Jews and said that as long as a Jew lives in Russia and he hears that he is a Żydowska morda, then something happens to him. I mean, he gets at least a notion of identity. But this notion of identity is surely not enough. And let me just add, in order, if somebody is displeased, to add to this displeasure, there is something which I don't want to dwell upon, but just to put as a point. It is a great pity when we are identified as the people that are kicked, as we are when we try to create a religion and a myth of being victims, perpetual victims, of creating the religion of the Holocaust. That is something which is basically very negative. Negative also in the sense that we are, as a people, believers in life and not in death. We don't believe in things that come from death. We don't believe that death should be a beginning. We believe in a living God, stressed very hard, and contrary to the Christians, we don't have a dead God to worship. Now it's very essential that we don't have to worship also a dead people. If one goes by trying to create identity by victims or by the dead ancestors, this worship of the dead or the dying or something that passed away is surely not enough for a continuation or for an identity. Again, in some cases it serves. Herzl began to think about Zionism because of the Dreyfus affair. It was the first time that he encountered anti-Semitism in bulk. Some other people are driven, this is their first point, but it shouldn't be the only one, and surely not the last one. So the real quest is not for how nice I am as a victim, how everybody hates me, and I enjoy it internally, how much everybody is against me, and I enjoy it, and I feel that I'm justified in that. If this country, for example, will survive only because it is surrounded by enemies, it is a very pity kind of survival. It's a pity that people go on just because they cannot join others. So the real problem is the search for some kind of an identity. And then let me begin with one or 2 points. One of them is some kind of a definition, a very private definition of what is a Jew. It is not a halachic definition, so you can't quote me in any rabbinical court on that. So I would say that the definition of a Jew is a person that suffers from a Messiah complex. It's a suffering. I mean, it's a kind of a hereditary, genetical failure in our, I would say, in our blood. We are all suffering from this complex. I mean, there are all kinds of individual complexes. As you know, many of you are trained as psychologists, and most of you that are at least Americans are immersed in psychological or pseudo-psychological literature. You cannot avoid it in the United States. But still, I would say, you know, there are so many complexes. And I'm now speaking about a special complex of our people, which is the Messiah complex. Now, the Messiah complex should be defined something in the following way. It is the feeling or the dream of a Jewish child that he has a need to save the world, a deep internal need to save the world. It is not that the world is asking him to be saved, but he feels that he has the mission. Now, that is a kind of madness. Clear, there's so many complexes. And I'm not trying now to defend it or to say that we are better than other people. In fact, I don't make any kind of a value judgment. But rather, I'm trying to stress a point that it exists. This is, in many ways, a definition of a part of a definition of our being different, of our being, in a way, a unique people, that we are as a people suffering from it, and each individual takes his share in that thing. Now, there is a beautiful statement in the Midrash. There is a verb which is found in the Psalms elsewhere, Al tig'u b'mshichai. Don't dare touch my messiahs. And the sages said, my messiahs mean children. Strange way of stating it, but that is exactly what I said. That is, a Jewish child is that one that dreams about saving the world. He may dream incidentally that he will be also a driver of a big car or be something else, but still he also wants to be the savior of the world. And that's a part of his existence. When they say that these are children, they also say something else. When they grow up, they sometimes forget about it. They forget the dream. They forget the wish. They forget the desire. And then, as any complex, it becomes dangerous for them. Because as long as you know that you have it, as long as you have this desire, this wish, then you can more or less work with it. When you try to submerge it and not to sublimate it, people are just trying to downtread it, to cause it to become all kinds of small things and unimportant things, then it becomes a melody. But it's still the Jewish melody, the melody of the person that wanted to be a Messiah and just forgot about it. He just became a small businessman or a big businessman or sometimes a community worker. Now, when I speak about it, when I speak about this thing, and I'm saying that this is a kind of strangeness, if you want, of madness. I want, in a way, to speak to you, not about suppressing it, but about encouraging it. This is something that, as any kind of a genius that grows, develops, and becomes something because of his otherness. So our people really grow when they have this feeling and they have this very basic duty, feeling of a duty, feeling of that I have to go and do something to save the world. Now, I don't want to speak about history or sociology. Still, the number of Jews involved in all kinds of schemes to save the world is still larger than any other people. We are always in the front, whether it is left wing or right wing, whether it is terroristic or anti-terrorist, but still we are always as people trying to do it. But I am not speaking now not about the very young people, and I'm not speaking about extraordinary people. I'm just speaking about what I would call the ordinary person. And the ordinary person should be, in a way, driven towards it. Driven towards it, towards feeling that, I would say, that he has, first of all, that he has a mission, that he has a search, that it is something inherent within him and he has to work in it. Which means, and now let me go into something which is slightly more practical. See, one of the basic problems of Jewish communities, and of course of those that have to move the communities, is that it seems to be so very hard and so very unpleasant to make the people do anything extraordinary. Everybody wants to be like everybody. I want to imitate the rest of the world, to imitate my neighbors, to do whatever I can in this aspect. The work of trying to set first and foremost, as a first thing, is that And that is one of the things that has to be said, is one, to stress that we cannot and we should not and be like other people. You may call it whatever name you want, but one of the first things to stress is that we are demanded. We need it not only because, and now I'm trying to speak in a very, I would say, non-religious format. I would put it this way. Even when God is not calling us, we are crazy enough to do it on our own. And that means that we have always to ask for more. To ask for more. That what I call, that enough is not enough. What we need is always more than what we have. And that we need to get higher and higher levels and never look what the neighbors are doing. The basic idea of being comparatively good, of being better than so and so, that I'm looking at my neighbors and I say, well, some of them, I would say, in the Irish community, possibly there are more drunkards. In the black community, there are possibly more violence. In that community, there is more things. So we are all together. We are not so bad, but that's not the way. The way is that we should begin by demanding much more, demanding more in every level, and let me just say it, add it in this way. Sometimes, and it may be people have this experience that when they demand or when they ask, they are not always well received. I think, I do believe, and I think that experience shows it, that in fact what we don't have over much of a burden. We have too little of it. We are not doing enough in every sense, in every level. More than that, we as a people, we have this internal feeling that we are not doing enough. And therefore, people are in a way waiting, at least if they are not rushing to do it, they are waiting for somebody to ask them to do more. Of course you may be kicked downstairs. That's a part of your job. It's a part of your own duty to be kicked again and again. But let me just say that inherently I do believe that our people want much more. And what they are asked in every level is just far less than enough. And because they are not asked for more, they are just deprived of what is really their inheritance, what is really the right, which is, as I tried to say before, the right to be a Messiah. The right to be something, which means I have to ask people not because I have a need. To put it in one way, the Jewish need to give, to participate, to become better is far greater than the need of the people that should get these things. So in a way, the real problem all over the world is that our people are not asked to work hard enough. And because they are not asked enough, they are really degenerating. They are degenerating in what I would call an American suburban life, which is a terrible thing if you say the East European Jewish mother that had to feed her children and to earn the money to do so, and to care for her husband who usually wasn't doing anything useful, and to run somehow a household. Now when you take such a person that has inbuilt enormous power that went on for ages, and you take something which is like, I would say, that is a motor that can drive a warship, and you put it in a small 4-seat car. So of course it creates madness. It creates immediately madness. I mean, that is almost the only result that you have, which is, as I say, that is not just the difference, but I would say the gap between what we really want to do, what we really can do, and what we are doing. And this gap creates our neurosis, our psychosis, our troubles as a people, because we are not doing enough of what has to be done. So let me just again say some things. Any attempt to make nice, comfortable, unpainful Judaism is bound to fail, because if we wanted this sort of life, we would cease 1,000 years ago being Jews. I've been once in an international group. There were all kinds of people there, different religions and so on. And I have been asked to speak about the Jewish religion. I mean, there were Christians and Muslims and whatever you want. And I had to explain Judaism. And my summing up, which was something like this. I tried to explain it as honestly as I could. I said something like this, that our burden and our duties, religiously, nationally, are terribly heavy. Being a Jew is different from almost belonging to any other religion in the fact that we don't have any minute of rest from it. We from opening the eyes to closing them, we are always overburdened with all kinds of duties, small ones and big ones. It's big trouble, hard work. It's really hard to be a Jew. Now, in the world to come, I would say that the Jewish paradise is far less colorful and far less enticing than the Muslim one. So after describing all these things, somebody asked me really honestly, so if this world is a world of hardship, the next world, the biggest promise is that the righteous have no rest in the world to come because they are advancing continuously. So you don't have peace in this world. You don't have peace in the next world. So what makes people adhere to this religion? I mean, it was a good question and an honest one. And I said, there are two kinds of people, and there are two kinds of temptations. Some people can be tempted when you tell them you have a soft bed to lie upon. And some people are tempted. That's a great temptation for them. And some people are tempted when you tell them there is a terribly high mountain to climb. And they are rushing and they are climbing it. Now I would say, through the generations, natural selection, internal selection, we were the people that wanted to climb mountains. The people that found their enjoyment in the challenge, that found the thing that drives them in being more and doing more and becoming higher, better, whatever it is. And when you deprive our people of that, when you try to fool them or to lull them into saying that, okay, you can be a nice Jew without doing anything. You can be a learned Jew without knowing anything. You can be a Jewish leader with a combination of both of these things, neither knowing, not doing anything. Now, when you have all this, you think that you get the nicest and the best. No, this temptation is not only a temporary one. It doesn't really work for our people. What we need is far more, which means when I'm trying to talk to people about Jewish identity, and I try to tell them that it's an easy thing and they should just contribute to the United Jewish Appeal something and possibly come once a year to a synagogue, a temple, whatever it is, and I think that I am making a great advance. Even when I'm successful with one individual, I'm surely not successful with the children. Because, as I said, a true Jewish child is one that wants to be a Messiah. And he will be driven when I'm asking him to do something difficult, something hazardous, something unusual. That will be the real drive for that person. When I'm trying to make, and I know that it is so very easy for a community worker to tread in this way. I mean, you are not saying yes and whatnot, you are not saying no. You are trying not to say anything at all if you can speak without saying anything. It's very, very easy. It is very easy to make the less demands and to feel that somehow you escaped all these things. But as I say, we are now speaking about something, and I don't want to enlarge upon it. You know it far better than I would ever know. You know that we are, in many places, we are an endangered species. We are, as a people, melting out. And we are melting. And let me just add, it is not always, maybe that is you won't agree with me, but I found out that contrary to the past, where those who remained were the best, those that left were either physically, morally, intellectually the dregs. It is no longer true. So many of the people, the best people that we have as a people, are outside. And they are outside many times because there was no challenge in it. Because it was, all in all, boring to death. I mean, it's a wonderful thing to give once a year or twice a year to Israel. It is surely not something that makes a person alive. When you ask from people more, they not only give more. And I'm not speaking just about money, because I think that money is just a byproduct. Some time ago, and I'm surely not not good at raising money, I met with an American millionaire. And we had a nice talk. And he rather liked me. It is unexplained, but it happens anytime. He rather liked me. And then he came to some point. He said, okay, what do you want from me? Now, I had then a choice. Very wealthy person, and a very generous one. I could have asked at the time, clearly for $100,000. I think that he would sign a check. And I needed it. But I told him, which was a great mistake seemingly, I told him, see, what I really want is your soul. Then if I have it, I'll get also your money. Now, I don't know if it works always. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes such a person looks at me, and possibly justly so, as being somebody that is not really of the right type of people that he wants to meet. He knows people that ask only for limited things. But still, I would say that what is the duty of the community leader is really to take people's souls, to demand their souls, not to demand their money and not to demand some small activity, which means to ask people for far more involvement, that it is never enough, as they say. That is a statement that they say about blessing, ad blidai, that you won't say enough, and that I think it's a part of what we can and we should demand. And then now I'm speaking about every area. And the first one is what I try to say. The first thing about Jewish identity, the first thing is give yourself. Don't give something else. Don't even give your children. First of all, give yourself. When a person gives something of himself, gives himself, that is a real involvement. And again, I'm trying to say, I'm not devising a new strategy of fundraising or of getting help. I'm just speaking about not what we say in the community, in a certain community, need. I'm speaking about what the people I'm asking for needs. He really needs somebody to come and ask him for something bigger, because that is really what he's waiting for. There was a time, and I heard it, a friend, somebody told me, and it was just about the time of your first international conference. Somebody told me, he said, in the time before the 6-Day War, people were extremely nervous, and they were waiting for the war. I mean, everybody knew that it is coming, but nobody knew exactly when. So all those people that were in the reserves packed everything, they were ready, and they were just waiting for a knock at the door to call them. Then somebody told me, just after the 6-Day War, I had the same feeling that something else is demanded, and I waited for somebody to knock on the door and tell me that there is another thing to go to do. And in many ways, I don't want to speak. Many of you are not Israelis, and therefore I don't want to speak about Israel, surely not anything against Israel, but let me say, in many ways, what we really lacked at the time was that nobody came afterwards, in the 7th day and the 8th day, to knock on the door and say, that was not enough. Because that was what people really wanted. They wanted, as I say, the knock on the door of saying that something more is needed. Now, I just want to, more or less, to finish about some of the things that more or less practical. See, there are different levels of what I call of achieving some kind of a Jewish identity. I do not despise even the lowest denominator or the lowest thing that is still Jewish. As I said, in some cases, when a person calls himself a Jew, that is something. I spoke about it recently, and I repeat it. I have been misunderstood, and I'm ready to repeat it and to be misunderstood again. In some cases, even though it's not my type at all, in some cases, if a person will eat gefilte fish, it is also an achievement. If you will read a bad Jewish novel, it is also an achievement. It is sometimes. If he will give his child among 6 Christian names, also one Jewish one, it is also an achievement. But I'm saying, so I don't despise things that are sometimes that is also a beginning. That is a beginning. For some people, it is a strange experience that so many people say in the Soviet Union got the first call to Judaism from reading something that they themselves knew was a bad novel from Exodus by Uris. They knew that it is a bad novel. It was badly translated, if it was, but still they got something from it. A person may watch a Jewish show, or what I personally extremely dislike, a concert of Chazanut, and still there is something in it. But again, I'm just saying that is not, whatever it is, and I said I don't despise it, but it is not enough. It is not enough, and those people know that it is not enough. We should get, if I'm counting things, when it comes, first of all, to Jewish learning, there is a minimum limit of Jewish learning that should be demanded of everybody, below which it is useless. And that lowest limit is quite high. This is the limit in which a person has enough knowledge that he can go on and study for himself. It is surely not a very low level, but that is a minimum limit. When you don't have it, it is not enough. It is not enough. And when you think that hearing a lecture here and there, even a nice lecture by a good lecturer, will do anything, it is a mistake. It is not sufficient in itself. More than that, it doesn't satisfy the person that really wants more. So it wants more of this. Later, there is the personal involvement. The personal involvement, which is, I spoke so many times to American rabbis, telling them, advising them to abolish the sermons. They would agree, I'm afraid, but not because the sermons are so very bad. You know they are bad enough, but that's not the point. Because the whole build-up of a passive community is a basic mistake for Jews. Building a passive community is a basic mistake. We shouldn't allow it. We shouldn't allow passive Jews. It is not good for the community. It is not good for the people. And more than that, it is not good for them. They are pining even though they don't know why. They want more, and they need it, and they need to be driven, and they need to be. I would say, I don't know what ways you can do it. You have to seduce them into Jewishness. You have to rape them into Jewishness. You have to do whatever you can, but push them and push hard. And as I'm saying, that will have a result. And more than that, and let me just finish with that. See, any attempt for trying to create minimal definitions of Jewishness is self-defeating. It's self-defeating. It works for a very short time. It works for one generation, perhaps. It doesn't work further on. It doesn't work, and it doesn't have that only thing that we have as being Jewish. I would say, if you wanted, this holy madness of being, of doing something, of being something extraordinary. We are not satisfied with minimum definitions. And when you try to give minimum definitions, it is self-defeating in itself. When you try to make it easy, smooth and easy, you are just fighting against the very nature of the people. Of course there will be resistance. Of course there will be resistance. And perhaps once in a while, the community worker won't be just the nice person that everybody likes and ignores. He will be possibly somebody that I love to hate. But see, then he is beginning to fulfill his job. Then he's beginning to fulfill his job as a gadfly. If some of you remember what Socrates defined his duty in the Athens community, he said, it's a funny parable, he said, but I'm just a gadfly that sits upon the lazy horse and makes it move. Now the gadfly, as I said before, is never liked. The horse doesn't like it, people don't like it, but still it is essential. But you have to appear as somebody that at least will say to others, let me just finish with what happened years ago. My father, that was from a very illustrious family, went to one of his relatives who was a Hasidic Rebbe. And that Hasidic Rebbe, instead of preaching to him, which wouldn't work very well, he just put a hand on him and said, you know, I am called Abraham, and you are called Abraham. Let us repent together. So I would say the Jewish community leader don't always have to tell people, I am better than you, and you have to do things. But he may go to people and say, I am not doing enough, not half of what is needed. But you are also not doing it. So let us do something much more of what we have to do in order just to fulfill ourselves without speaking about being what I call really fulfilling the inner demand that we have. And then possibly we'll hear also a voice from above.
תודה רבה לרב שטיינזלץ, שלא הצליח להוכיח את מה שאמר בראשית דבריו על הכישרון שלו